The agenda is the approval of the meeting agenda.
So,
Second, motion is second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to public comment. Our first of two public comment sections. Anybody have anything they would like to share?
Say the pledge the right way.
The approval. It's the wrong way.
It's one nation under God, not one nation under God.
I said it the right way.
No comment.
Did I say it the wrong way?
No, you didn't.
Unless you have a short for teacher.
You think maybe my kids would have taught me that? I don't know.
They haven't heard
we're
you say
Sergeant
it.
Major Davis, lead your scout.
I'm just.
Okay, anything else you'd like to share?
Is that gonna be a
She's on
knowledgeable
the
question?
retire list.
Thank
Check her off.
No, I said, is that gonna be a knowledgeable question?
No.
No.
Okay, seeing no other public comment, we will move on to teaching and learning part, which is knowledgeable.
I want to thank Mr. Raines and Mrs. Belkowski for being here, as well as the students of Knowledge Bowl, to show off their expertise. Although the board is fairly confident that their expertise is at a higher level than yours. I'm putting my money on
I've
you
seen them,
guys.
I was gonna say, I've seen them in action, so don't put that on me.
You're the one that was talking today.
Oh, what?
Okay, so take it away.
So, I just want to give a little background about Knowledge Bowl. We had 83 students participating this year, which is really awesome. We take 2 full buses to our meets. We took between 14 and 16 teams. The community volunteers, we have 7 different parents that came and read questions at the meet, and that helped enable us to take that many kids. And we take good kids. We take kids who are interested and positive about Knowledge Bowl for the most part, I think, right, kids?
And that compares pretty favorably with what comes from other schools.
Yes.
Very much so.
We have, we brought the most, probably the
Great,
most teams
yeah.
this year.
Yeah.
This has been our biggest year so far. I've been doing it about 16 years. Every year, all of those years except for, I believe, twice, we've qualified to go to the state. So we have high-level kids, and there's quite a few people in this room whose students in the past have been members of those state teams. So it's been really fun. The highest we've ever placed at state since I've been around is 3rd, which was in 2011, which is really awesome. I think it's partly we have so many kids because we have a strong junior high program, and it's something that kids can do even if they're involved in after-school activities. They don't have to miss out on their sports or drama or whatever else they're doing after school. We practice during lunch. They are willing to give up lunches. Because we have such a big group, we divide them, and some meet Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, and that's when we practice during the season. There are 3 regular meets, and all the teams go to that. And then after that, the top team will go to our regional meet, which is February 6th at the ESD. And we just take our top team, and these are the students that are the members of our top team. This year we've had teams place 1st, 2nd, we had 2 4ths and 2 6ths. And there's usually 40 to 50 teams at a meet, so we do well. Let's see what else. Meet consists of 1 written round, so 50 questions. 60 written questions, and then 4 oral rounds of 45, and then they're scored and they're ranked against each other, and it gets so the top teams play the top teams, so they're going against competition at the meet. There will be 18 1A teams at the state meet. This year's state is in March, on March 14th in Arlington, and we hope that we will qualify. Our meets in February, the regional meet, we will compete against 1A, 2A, and 3A teams from ESD 113, and we need to be in the top 2 of the 1A teams at that meet in order to advance to state. So we think we will.
And that was when? When did you say that was?
February 6th.
So this will be good practice to warm up.
Well, it is a little warm up for them, yeah. So, do you have any other questions, just general questions about Knowledge Bowl? What's going on? Do you know how meets work or how this competition is going to work? Steve's been a reader this year.
I read for junior high.
You read for junior high, yeah. Let's see, I'll read the question. If you think you know the answer, you're gonna need to raise your hands. You have 15 seconds. You can confer if you want. And then give an answer. If it's incorrect, the other team can ring in or can attempt to answer.
So we can talk amongst each other.
You can,
Okay.
yes.
Keep in mind, I'm sitting right in front
But
of
we
you.
don't want, is it normal that the other team can hear you when you're conversing?
Well, you're sitting about that close together in the room, and so, yeah, they can hear you unless you're quiet.
At the regional and state level, there is usually no talking. It's all written communication by the team because they try to avoid that. But at regular meets, it's not unusual to have.
There's a lot of whispering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot
They're
of
closer together, I mean, they usually are.
So like, if you think you know the answer, you indicate and then you confer, and then you should choose one person to be your captain that will give the answer. We don't just shout out the answers, one person gives the answer. So, you guys ready to try it?
So,
Any questions?
students,
Would you like to?
can we introduce ourselves?
Yes, that's.
Taylor?
Dale Malizia,
Dakota Jefferson, Jeff Larness.
Andrea Oswald, Ty Vance.
Hey, go on down.
Come on.
And we don't have a buzzer, we just raise our hands.
Well, we don't have, we're gonna use this box as a timer, but so that you can see how much time you have, but we don't have ours don't work. So we practice it out and use the last 20. And normally there's only 4 people in an oral round, but we let them.
So we always play.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so.
Who's gonna be your captain?
Sure.
Okay, so Captain Steve and the Captain Jeff, okay. You ready for question number 1? Oh, you can use paper and pencil to jot down anything, and I will notify you if it's going to be a math question ahead of time. So number, I think they, yeah, I know. You might want to get a little closer.
This is the first question, let's see how it goes.
I gave you a couple hints there about it might be a math question, didn't I? Okay.
This is a math question?
Number 1 is a math question. Expand the quantity P plus Q times the quantity P minus Q. We'll call them team A.
Team A.
Student team.
Team, yes,
So we're really there. Martin's answer is P squared minus Q squared.
Correct.
I have that too. Oh, that's a little bit too late.
Yeah, you gotta indicate somehow because we don't have a bar, so.
They'd already raised their hand though before she asked.
They were already in, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. They were free.
Okay. Number 2, in Vitruvian Man, Leonardo da Vinci's famous sketch, which illustrates the proportions of the human figure, there are how many arms? So,
Team's answer is 6.
incorrect.
Or
2.
Incorrect. There are 4.
Will you guys
And the captain should probably make sure he checks with all the team members. You might check with all your team members.
He sounded like he was very sure of it.
Number 3, in U.S. open primary elections, what kind of voting occurs when voters affiliated with one political party participate?
Team's answer is caucus.
Incorrect.
Please repeat my next question.
Yes, I can because you have it right in there. Okay, so number 3, in U.S. open primary elections, what kind of voting occurs when voters affiliated with one political party participate in the primary of the other?
Okay, we'll ring in.
I think it's cross.
Cross ballot or crossover?
Cross ballot? Or you could, I think it's crossover, but I'll go with that.
We're gonna say crossover.
Correct. Very good.
I'm pretty sure it's
Number 4, John Speck and Richard Burton sought to find the source of what river?
Our team's answer is Nile.
Correct, point for A. Number 5, stage fright causes the body to activate its sympathetic nervous system and release what hormone?
Our team's answer is adrenaline.
Correct. And from the acceptable also. Okay, we're just doing 10 questions, we're on 6. Reminiscent of vertebrate skeletal parts, name the vertical ridges on cactus stems that
Our team's answer is spines.
incorrect.
Or,
You've already run into it.
they're in,
Finish it.
they're in.
There can't
I
be.
can't finish
Run
this
in,
wrong
you can't.
answer, so yeah.
You can't. Oh, really? That's what they said.
What?
Arms? What? Those are arms on a single arm?
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's.
We'll say arms.
Incorrect, it's ribs.
Vertical
Vertical ridges on cactus stems that are formed from the skin are called ribs.
So there was, yeah, there was more than one question.
Yeah. Number 7, name the 3 plural intensive pronouns. Jeff?
Our team's answer is ours, theirs, and hers.
Incorrect.
We'll say yours, theirs, and ours.
Incorrect. That it is ourselves, yourselves, themselves.
We were closer, half a point.
Number 8, what kind of computer could contain 7,168 GPU processors, 14,300,
Our team's answer is a supercomputer.
correct? Gee, I'm gonna have to read all that other stuff. Okay, number 9, I didn't hear it all, but he guessed and he was right, so. Number 9.
I don't think that was a guess.
I was 2 petabytes and a total memory of 262 terabytes. Yeah,
That's
had a block computer, whatever that is. Okay, number 9, what member of the Lewis and Clark expedition was the first non-native to see the Jackson Hole area? Yeah, you want those?
Our team's answer is Marion Lewis.
Incorrect.
Clark. We'll say Clark.
Incorrect, it's John Coulter.
It would have been, and it's Meriwether Lewis, so you'd have been wrong by the
Yeah,
wrong
I said
first
Mary
name.
Lewis. and-
Yellowstone's also known
Is he
as
the
Cold.
slave?
No, no, his name starts with Y.
Okay, last question is a math question. Number 10, simplify the quantity q squared minus 1 divided by q minus 1.
His answer is Q.
Incorrect.
We'll wait. Minus Q.
Incorrect, the answer is q plus 1. Because I said q squared minus
Yeah,
1.
Q's got this one.
Oh, so
That's knowledgeable.
Q
Final
plus
score,
one.
we have 4-1. We were reading regional level questions, they do get more difficult as they move up. Thank you.
Well, hey, nice job.
Thank you.
You can.
Over there in that corner.
This morning,
Yeah.
Okay.
Not working well?
Little.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Come back to the same time. Okay, moving on. To the business operations report, monthly budget status.
Okay, just a few quick things. We've been going through our audit for the last, 2 weeks already. They plan on being here through the end of the month. And they're looking at the federal single audit, looking at federal special ed, which things are going well there. Financial audit and the accountability audit, which they've already looked at enrollment and no red flags or anything there either. So, there hasn't been anything that has been brought up to us that is an area of concern as of yet. So I think we're cruising right along with the audit, but come next month, we should have a little better idea where we are there. Which brings us to talking about budget for next year. So I have just a quick worksheet. We've been talking to administrators about staffing levels and our projected enrollment for next year. And you can see by this worksheet that we first take a look at what happens when we just roll the students up to the next year in class and what that looks like. And then also when we look at when we're looking at an enrollment number for budget projection, which we always budget conservatively when it comes to enrollment numbers, so we don't have a sudden decrease in enrollment and be surprised with too many staff on board, which are locked into contracts. So pretty much everything's good, except we're gonna have some movement with class sizes because we've got some real differences, between 3rd and 4th grade. And then 2nd grade too, there's that big 3rd grade class, which means there's a teacher now that's in 2nd grade that's probably gonna have to move to 3rd grade. So there'll be some movement there. Same thing with the 4th grade at Simpson. That's a small class, so again, we probably will only need 3 teachers. And so we'll have some movement there. And with retirements, we should be okay as far as needing to, won't have to let anyone go or anything like that. So just first steps in budget process. This is the start of it. We'll get it rolling, and we'll come to you with some decision type packages for you to look at, and we'll go from there.
So, am I correct in, we're expecting 80 less kids than we have this year? Is that what I'm saying?
80 less
We're looking at
kids.
budgeting. Are you looking at the
Well, the enrollment projection based on 14-15 roll says total of 1233.
Right. So we would budget at 1210.
Right, I understand. But don't we have like 13?
No, head count. This is FTE.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's different because kindergarten, we only count them as half.
Right. So our current FTE is?
Our current FTE is 1250 some.
So 25.
Yeah.
So we actually have 80 kindergartners, 80 halftime kindergartners?
Right now, we have 78.
Or we was, okay, what
Yeah.
you're saying, we have 80 kindergartners, but that works out to 40
Yes,
FTE.
yes. Yep. So, and then the other thing that we'll look at, and I sent in your budget reports, was that long sheet with all the colors on it, and that's our cash projection worksheet that we work off of, and that's another part of the budget process, is that we need to determine where our fund balance will be at the end of this year to determine what our beginning is for next year. So January apportionment is when all those numbers become true to enrollment. So, just here in a few days, we'll get those new numbers. And so I'll be changing all that whole column where it says apportionment, that'll be changing. And so as the months go on, we'll watch that fund balance change according to where our expenditures and revenues come in.
So the Rs think will be out in 105 days.
So-
The Rs, the Republicans.
Oh,
And the Ds, and I think everybody that's a betting person, thinks that there'll be at least one special session, and may not be out to the end of June.
Right.
So just, it's too soon to tell, but
So from the thing, we have a gal from Wasco that's a legislative, what would you call her?
liaison.
Yes, she does a lot of work with the legislature, and they are, and as well as the people at ESD, they are fully thinking that we will be adopting budgets before the session's over. So, which most likely means revision shortly thereafter. So they don't think they'll finish in time for our budget deadlines.
So our plan is to move ahead with the process, and talking about it each meeting with at the latest of May, sort of here's where we think we are, so that we can have some time to send it to PSD to come back. And like Sheila said, it's very likely that we'll adopt the budget before the session's over, and then have to go back later and make some adjustments. But this is step number one.
Any other questions for Sheila? Okay, thanks, Sheila.
Yep.
Moving on to the consent agenda.
I would move that we accept the consent agenda as written.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Personnel reports.
And we can accept this as, we don't have to go item by item on these, do we?
You can do it the whole thing.
All right, I would move that we accept the personnel report then as well as written.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the personnel report. Any discussion? Mrs. Sherrard, even though you yelled at me earlier, you sure you want to leave?
Sure, because I can come back and tell us.
That's true. It's not going to permit or go to public comment. Huh?
Next time come in for our financials, I'll teach you.
All right. Any other discussion?
I just, 3 people retiring, 3 people that have been here a long time, 3 people that have meant a lot to what we've done and what we've accomplished. And because Cindy's here, I'll thank you personally, and we've already chatted about this, but you will be greatly missed by kids, staff, me, because you always seem to be able to put a smile on my face, even when I'm out there with the talent assembly, which I refuse to do for your final year.
I didn't ask you.
I was thinking about that. Anyway, thank you for all your years of service to the district, and you will be missed.
I'd like to mention something too. Mrs. Sherrard was my daughter Catherine's 5th grade teacher last year, and made a big difference on Catherine's life. She was a lot more confident, her grades started to improve greatly. So I just wanted to thank you, made a big impact on her. So thanks.
Very good. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to action items. The first item is discussion on district report card draft.
So this is one of the items in the strategic plan that was on target to be completed this year. So this, and we put huge draft on the front because it truly is a draft, and you've had hopefully some time to take a look at it. We tried to put this together with the information that we felt we had discussed in the past that we wanted to have in there. But there's no guarantee that we got it right. So what we're looking for is some input or discussion about what else needs to be done with this before we're ready to get it on the website and roll it out in public. And I would say we're ready to do that as soon as we can all come to an agreement on what is in it. So what did you see that was good or?
Yeah, I would just say overall, I really liked the layout, and I appreciate the time you took to put it together. And there was really nothing that, I actually, until just now when we're talking, I would like to see enrollment in FTE. That's what confused me, was the enrollment count in here is by count instead of FTE. So I think either show them both, or, because we always talk about it in FTE, so that's what it, you know, people like me that are a little slower.
Yeah, but for the general public, have them both or somehow, because FTE is a little confusing, obviously.
And we did talk about that.
We debated it, and Sheila thought we should do it by FTE, and I thought we should do it by that. So, yeah, totally.
So you both, I mean,
Yeah.
however you want to do it, I mean, there's probably room to do both, but that really is, you know.
Oh, we got, so what's that right there? On that page, it shows enrollment, is that?
That's headcount.
Yeah, is that in this, or is this the strategic plan update you're flashing up here?
No, that's in there.
Oh, there it is, page 3, okay. Okay.
So, the only other question I have is, as we look at comparisons, like I think, you know, it's comparing to the state. I know we talked about comparing to the state, we talked about comparing to our like peers. I mean, do we, in this, I guess part of it would be how hard would it be to compare to like peers, and does it make sense, or are we okay comparing to the state? I mean, obviously you put state in there. I'm just kind of curious what everybody's thoughts are.
Well, and I'll tell you, we had this discussion, and it's in the strategic plan, so yes, we do want to compare to that top 25%. The problem that we're having, and Sean, if there's additional to this, is that we don't, because of the smarter balance, we don't know who the top 25 are going to be after this year's test. So we weren't sure how to make that comparison at this point. There's a number of ways it can be done, and we can throw it in there, but I think that it all goes away next year when we start from scratch, basically.
And it creates a level of complexity that requires explanation. So we landed on, we'll present those kind of comparisons at a board meeting to make it public that way, versus the intent of this document is one that 10 years from now will look the same with updated information.
Right.
You know, and we felt that it, you know, saying Elma, here's theirs and ours saying here, I mean, that would be straightforward. That would reduce the complexity, but we don't know if that's the direction you guys want to go.
But we haven't forgotten about that piece.
Yeah.
I was just curious, just because of.
Well, is that the same idea as kind of the like district comparison, where we had 4 or 5 districts that we thought compared?
Yeah. It's the more you add to a grid. I mean, we already have, I mean, think about it logistically here. As you look at it, you have a grid with a left and right, you know, a left header and a top header, and then you have color coding to create the 3rd level or 4th level of information, right? So you add another piece to it, and you have to figure out how to add a 5th level of information. And I not comprehending in my head a good way of doing that other than another column, but then
It's a lot of data. I mean,
you can see how long they already are.
Right.
I mean, we have.
I agree. I mean, I think it's, and I understand what you're saying. I mean, if you have a common metric that we're looking at.
Right.
Because those, another thing you're saying is, whatever those schools are today, maybe different schools 5 years from now,
Right.
maybe different.
Exactly. And we'll be putting together fairly detailed data of those comparisons and providing it to you. And we can make all that public as well. Just, it would be hard to make it be part of this cohesive document, but we can try.
There'll be some new stuff coming out in the next couple of years in terms of what the State Board of Education is talking about, ranking schools, and so there may be some other stuff that's coming out. I think comparing with the state probably for this document is useful, and probably the best. You certainly wouldn't want to compare with Grace Harbor County. I agree. You would have to put in a whole different set of tables to be able to compare that other stuff, and it likely would be too complex. So I think this is reasonable for this kind of a document.
Right.
But we do need to see that other stuff at some point.
Yeah.
So most of the other districts, they use Common Core standards also. I mean,
That's the requirement in the state, that everyone is moving in that direction.
okay. So
Some districts are further ahead than others, but that's the expectation, because that ties in with the new assessment.
okay. And
This will be the first year that everybody will be tested on the Common Core state standards.
so moving forward in time, we're gonna have more data to compare. Is there any other standards and exams that are commonly used?
No.
These are the primary standardized.
Most districts are using district assessments, and some of them are using the one, most of the same company, like we use CBM.
Okay.
So other districts use that, but there's not a uniform throughout the state kind of assessment. Other than if you look at the SAT or the ACT, those kinds of things.
So from thinking of our target audience, on that same page, page 3, section 504 has no intuitive. Is there a plain language description that we can put in there instead of section 504?
I could try to star it and explain it.
Okay, because right when I look at it, it has no meaning.
What page are we?
And I know I should know.
Page 3.
Page 3 under special programs.
So section 504 is the section 504 of the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. That's why it's called section 504. So I can put some sort of a asterisk on that. So this page, page 3, if you have to be operating on version 4.4 or 4.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah, because the page numbers were wrong on the version we gave you guys, the original one. So it's right down there. So, and that gives me a good opportunity to point out some of the things in this document are things that are meeting just like a legal requirement. You know, and Title I requires to do certain types of reporting, and so just going down that road, this is one of those ones that just saying this is what our is meets that need to some extent. That's the same reason why you'll see on the very last page you'll see NAEP scores, which is something we really never talk about here, but it's something that we have to report to our community through a report card. So that's why they're there.
Oh, okay, because that was when I was going to suggest a drop.
I know, but it meets a legal requirement.
So this is for expenses for disabled kids or handicapped kids or something like that? Is that
Section 504 is a law that says we have to provide reasonable accommodations and modifications for anybody with a disability or suspected disability. It's the reason why that door is 36 inches wide. And there's ramps to get into places and elevators to get into places and whatever accommodation we need for a child.
So I think saying reasonable accommodation for ADA.
Yeah. I have room to put a star. The other thing that I guess we haven't really talked about that you'll see big gaps. So like on that page, there's a big gap right here. What we'll be filling that in is with just events that have happened in the district or important highlights of story kind of stuff to fill our community on just things that have happened. And so you see
would be a picture of the band marching in the Festival of Lights Parade. So we can get a cross section of academic, healthcare and all that kind of, but the arts and athletic.
Knowledgeable.
Yeah.
You know, we had 83 kids and took these first and these seconds and stuff. I mean, that was just
so like those narratives will fill in those holes. We just haven't gotten there yet.
top of page 4, the 2013-14. This is just kind of an editing thing, but grade 10 didn't work for that.
Thank you.
What's in community service or expenditures?
That's the after-school program.
Oh, okay.
The things that MCO funds, after-school program, the art camp,
Okay.
any of that.
Oh,
Yep.
good.
That's MCO.
So then on page 5, the targets. And so refresh my memory about how we got to this. I'm afraid you're going to say, well, that we discussed them in board meetings and you guys all agreed to them.
No.
Oh, okay. Because I was worried about it.
No, this is something for you guys to use as a launching point.
Okay.
We put on here what we thought was reasonable and what kind of made sense, that we wouldn't be communicating something that is impossible to do. And so then people go, well, whatever, to communicating something that's also, let's go for it kind of thing. So this is I guess I would say this is our suggestion to you, but you have an opportunity to talk about that.
Yes, we wanted to have a number in the box to make it look,
sure.
but it's certainly not set in stone.
Okay.
And we kind of,
We thought through.
Yeah.
But it can adjust, yeah.
Yeah. So the graduation rate, the on-time graduation rate of 80% as a target seems a little low to me. As does the the growth percentiles, the strategic target for at the bottom of that same page, the 55 and the 55. So I think it would be useful to have some discussion about those. There was at least one that I thought was, well, on the top of the next page, the number of students enrolled in AP courses at 75%. That seems a little ambitious to me. But I don't know how that relates to what the state board is talking about for their scorecard for high schools where they're looking at access to AP and college and the high school and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, especially on that, when you look at that page, you won't see any, that number is not intended to be there. Because we don't even have the original, the 12, 13 numbers in there yet either.
but that one seemed a little high.
Yeah.
On that next one, post-secondary education, and this may just be,
Are we wanting to go through and talk about them now and kind of work on them, or is that for a different time? Because we can say them, but
Well, I think, for the one we just talked about, we need to have numbers first.
right.
So I think once we get numbers, we can come back and start looking at what a target would be.
yeah, I wasn't intending to have a thorough discussion of that, but
From the graduation ones, or that's what it is?
it may be, those are some points that I think
So I'm wondering if the question is, should we going to discuss the targets, and then when do we want to do that?
So the other thing about the targets is we were looking at what the state percentage was, or the state goal or average, and being higher than that.
That's a good start, yeah.
So whatever that turns out being is fine,
Yeah,
as long as it's not, totally unattainable.
sure, no,
Well, go ahead, what were you gonna say?
well, just in that next section where and this may be what, in terms of what's available, but to talk about kids in public and private 2- and 4-year colleges and not including military academies, which is probably not a huge issue for us, but it seems like that's a 2-year or 4-year college, and it ought to be, the military academies ought to be treated like any other 4-year.
Yeah, it's just a matter of how access we have to data.
Yeah,
And
that's,
so that is something you need to make a decision on. Do we want to report on number of students enrolled in post-secondary? Or do we want to report on the number of students enrolled in community college, number of students enrolled in 4-year? I can get numbers like number of students that are going on a mission. And I can also, I can break down that kind of stuff. I don't know if I have access to finding quickly if they've gone to military or not, at least in an ongoing way. We're small enough that we can call people and solve it, but the more you want, the more labor you're asking.
yeah, well, so this says military academies as opposed to kids going into the military.
Right.
Which would be two different
Absolutely.
things, so that was just, and then what's the difference between a trade school and a technical school in that? So, because we're including numbers of kids going to technical schools, but we're not including kids in trade schools, and
Right.
I'm not sure I know that.
I was just going by the data that we can get,
Okay.
I guess.
And
So I don't know. I can't answer that.
yeah, so part of this is driven by what's available.
Mhm.
Easily. There was a company at the conference in Spokane, the WASDA conference.
So okay, I got an example of a trade school. Let's say you go to, what's the name of the beauty salon lady, So you go and do Jean Juarez,
Or the Grace Harbor Beauty College.
Grace Harbor Beauty College,
Yeah.
right? So that would be an example, so we couldn't grab. But if they went and did at the community college for auto or whatever, diesel mechanic, we could grab that. I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
So sorry to cut you off. I needed time to process.
Sure, yeah. No. There was a company that they specialize in going out and asking and tracking people after they leave your school district.
Right.
And graduate. So and it costs money, so we have to decide whether that's worthwhile. But there are people in the private sector that are specializing in follow-up interviews and surveys and stuff like that. So I think this is good. On the next one where we talk about the number, it's valuable to know the number of students that are taking the ACT and the SAT and whatever. Do we know anything about how our kids score on those?
Yes, I believe we can track that.
Would it, would it be useful? Is there any utility in reporting that and along with numbers, or are there comparisons out there that make?
I don't know.
We know our kids are all in the 80th percentile, or?
I don't know. I have to
They do
look at
send
it.
a report that's fairly complex, I guess, or a lot of information. So I think you can go in and break it down. We would have to decide, whether we want to do percentile or.
Yeah.
But I can, they have both high school.
Yeah, so the first question is just, is that available? And then the second.
Well, I guess the first question is, do you think it's valuable? And the next question is, can we get the data? And then that, move on to it. Because I mean, we can parse data forever. There's tons and tons of things we chose not to do that we have data for. So you guys have to decide if that's something you care about.
I think it's something the community at large is aware of and tracks SAT and ACT scores when they're kind of comparing.
You think they do?
Yeah. I think if somebody asks about schools, to me, that seems like that's one of the main things. How do your kids?
Where have you seen that?
Just if you're applying to college, they want to know what the kids, how they do on the.
But they want to know their scores.
Yeah, that's like one of the main things.
But do you think our schools would know though? I mean, do you know? Off the top of your head?
No, I'm saying the community would be, I think that's.
Oh, you think that they would like
that
to
would be
know?
one of those numbers that they would be most interested in knowing.
Yeah.
As a community.
I think, to me, one of the issues is, I think we've got to be careful that this doesn't get too long, because, if it's too big, people they're going to get lost in it. So I do think we have to be a little bit discerning on what we want in there and what we don't. For what that, I mean, I'm not saying that answers the question on what it is or what it isn't, but I think we have to be careful, because if it's all of a sudden 15 pages long, and I kind of think, I really like it, and I think, we have these discussions about, but I really like the way it looks, and I think, the graphic page, and I think that's the kind of stuff that we want to be able to go out there and show people that are looking at us. But the one thing I'd say is if you're getting, to me, kind of towards the long end, where it is now. So, where do we say, and, you guys can say, well, we want it longer, and that's fine, but I just think you have to be careful. We do, I think you need to be careful with how long it gets. So I'm curious, I mean, do we think, would it be helpful, I mean, because you're talking about, some input on some of these numbers. I mean, does it make most sense to have a workshop and kind of dig into this a little bit? And would that be helpful for you? And what, from your guys' point of view, are you looking for?
Yeah. I mean, we need to nail down we definitely need to nail down what our targets are. That's a straight across, let's just get it done kind of thing. The more difficult things are like, do we think about the theory about like asking what you're asking? So we got to think through, like I look at it and I go, the purpose of this section is to really emphasize how we're preparing people for college and that kind of stuff. Does reporting SAT scores do that? And yeah, it can. So it meets that purpose, and I can try to see if I can wedge it in a way that makes sense, So if that kind of thing works, I think an easy thing to answer is yes, let's get together and nail down the strategic targets.
So any structurally, does anybody have any other thoughts about the document itself? I mean, just on the way it looks.
Does the key make sense? Are you able to flow? Does the flow work?
One minor thing at the top of page 7, it just kind of cuts off in the middle of the sentence. You may have already noticed that, but
Yeah.
I don't know how it's supposed to end, but it just depends.
Do we need to have an explanation of what AYP is? Like you have to talk
Yeah.
to some of those other charts?
Yeah.
Doesn't it say at the beginning?
So that's on page 8. I'll put a little description there.
I just want to make a quick comment. I think it covers the main items. I like the way it's kind of organized, and there can be some tweaking of the titles, and I mean, I can see some continued work, but it's looking good. Yeah.
The only other thing that we talked about that I don't see on here, and I'm not sure how easy it would be to do that, and that is some sense of the participation of kids.
We had a discussion about that Tuesday and trying to get that information. So we're seeing if we can compile it in a way where it's not inflated by repeats because they're participating. in
So you have to think about
multiple
unique
Yeah.
students, but, and so that's a trade-off there. If you think about, well, we have this many kids participating in football and this many kids participating in basketball, the fact that kids do two of those, you can say, well, yeah, that inflates it, but at the same hand, that's a good measure of how kids that are out there doing stuff. And so
Yeah,
you
it
used to
doesn't matter
know, yeah.
whether it's inflated or not. We had that conversation too, but Tim actually is gathering that. for the
Yeah.
last-
And they got drama and that tends to be focused on the high school, but I think there are a few things like the drum group at the elementary school might get captured in that as something they're doing, or the honor choir or whatever that they do kind of outside, or the jazz band that meets before school. So that was the only other thing that I saw that I thought would be useful for our outreach to the community and saying, this is what we're providing for these, because that's the stuff the levy pays for. So we can have that kind of stuff compiled.
Cool.
That helps us with that. So, but it's a good package, it's a good start, and just some things I think we can work on.
So I will work with Dan to set a time between now and our next meeting to have a workshop so we can meet with them what we want for it.
That'd be great.
Okay, thank you very much. Strategic plan update.
So one thing I want to say, is Steve and I had this conversation this morning, is that my intent for this was not to be a polished website, published document. It was halfway through the first year of the plan and just updating on what we've accomplished to this point with the goal of giving a more thorough, polished, if you will, prior to May or June when you do my evaluation, because that's what part of this is. So I just want to be clear that I realize it's sort of, there's not a lot of flash to this, but I'm just trying to give you, the basics of what it is.
Pedestrian.
Very pedestrian.
But it's good, I mean, that was nice to see and helpful.
Any questions or comments on the strategic plan update?
I had a couple of questions without seeing it. I don't remember what they were now.
I'm going to stop.
Yeah, keep going, I guess. I may not remember right now.
Another thing for highly capable, we tested kids yesterday at Beacon. In fact, I was going into a second grade classroom, and I went in 3 times in the last 2 weeks, and the little boy raised his hand and he said, when am I going to be tested for high cap? The next time he said, when is exactly on the calendar am I going to be tested for high cap? I said, I'm not sure, buddy, but it's coming.
That's great. Actually, that was a question. The AP, we're doing 2 AP right now. What other, it says calculus and literature right there. What other kind of classes are we looking at too?
So we've got an opportunity through Apex Online Learning System. They offer AP courses. That could be part of the high cap program at the high school. There's also the possibility of having other teachers become certified high cap or AP teachers in different areas. So for example, this year we would do calculus and lit, and next year we might do physics and something else. So as a junior, a kid could take 2 AP classes or have an option of 2 and then 2 different ones as a senior. So we're working through that process right now to determine how best to do it.
How old is this strategic plan?
We finished it last June.
So it's about 6 months.
Were teachers and staff involved? in the
We
process?
presented it to all 3 buildings.
Okay.
That was their level of involvement.
Okay. Was there a chance to get feedback?
It was emailed. And
Yes, and my hesitation is because I think we presented it and teachers accepted it for what it was, and those who wanted to give feedback gave feedback, and those that didn't just sort of moved on to something else.
Okay.
So that's my hesitation.
So, some feedback.
Yes.
Because I mean, I think it's a good strategic
We,
plan.
we did have a workshop with the administrators.
Okay.
Spent a long time talking back and forth.
Okay. I just want to make sure there's, different perspectives. We're looking at it and people who are involved get a chance to give input, so.
The fully kindergarten was a question too, so we are tentatively targeting a year from this fall to potentially have a fully kindergarten. Is that kind of what we're thinking? We're waiting to see what the legislature's gonna do.
Well, I think we're gonna wait, but I mean, we're waiting to see what they do. I have a feeling it's going to be, because the next year from this next fall will be 16, 17, right?
Right.
I have a feeling it's gonna be 17, 18. But we should know more, depending on what they decide they want to push in terms of the fully funding of basic ed. If that's their first step, it may happen sooner than later. If they try to spread it out, it may push districts like ours who are on the low side in terms of free and reduced to the very end.
Okay. And we have space then to move the third graders over to Simpson.
We could, yes.
That's what I thought.
We wouldn't need to do it. We've had 4 kindergartens. We had 4 kindergartens for 4 years. We used to fully fund our kindergarten here, so.
Okay.
We wouldn't need to move third grade.
So we don't have to do that even necessarily.
No, not necessarily, but if, we're one big class from,
It throws
Having
us
to do
off.
something.
When we have 5 second grades, it throws us off. But right now, we have 3 kindergarten classrooms. And that 4th classroom is a second grade classroom this year. So,
Okay.
the building was designed with 4 kindergartens, 4 firsts, 4 thirds, 4 seconds in mind, plus preschool. You get that 5th one, then you kind of get, but there is an extra room as well, which is like high, so there is a space for a 5th room too.
Okay. I think those are.
Okay, any other questions or thoughts about the strategic plan? Okay, thanks for the updates. Next, move on to policy 3211, transgender student, second reading.
So this is a policy.
yes.
It doesn't talk anything about how we might actually implement something like this. It just says it's the board policy that we're
This
going to
particular- yes.
accommodate and not discriminate.
Correct.
So at that level, this is a good piece of business. I mean, I think it's the right thing to do. How you sort of get to the next step of the thing is,
You,
can be a little more challenging.
and you got that other procedure document.
But
It was a second email.
I thought I looked at it and saw everything and maybe I
Okay,
missed it.
well, it wasn't in the packet, it was sent on Monday, Tuesday.
Okay, I may have missed it.
Okay, but check that, but yes, this is the umbrella,
Right.
and then everything else that I sent you is.
Okay.
We're gonna take it step by step.
Okay.
So this is, what I recall from last meeting, this is recommended. Wausau.
Yeah.
And proceeding without a policy would be risky for the district. So, and it's a documented on guidance, how the school district can navigate the transgender issue that comes before the school. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, it's,
To me, I looked it over and it doesn't seem like a good idea for us to adopt based on what I've been looking at. So I'm not, I'm not supporting it right now. I think a couple different reasons. One is essentially, from the way I read it, with end gender discrimination. in the school, which we don't want to do entirely. Gender discrimination in some ways is good. One being bathroom usage, and I think that would make a lot of our students uncomfortable, understandably so, if someone of the opposite gender was in the bathroom, especially for me with two girls. If I knew that there was a boy in the bathroom or in the locker room with my girls, and he was in there with permission, I wouldn't be happy about that. I wouldn't want that to happen. And I think it would make a lot of our students, it would put them in a really awkward and not a good situation for that. Another area also mostly affecting girls is our sports thrive because of gender discrimination. And if we had a policy that abolished that, like my daughter wouldn't be able to play basketball if it was not discriminated based on gender, because the boys would take over. 8th grade basketball, the difference between boys and girls in basketball is large, and girls depend on that to be able to play sports. They depend on the fact that it's just girls on the team, and they're just playing against the girls. And we set that up, and we discriminate against the boys and tell them, no, you have to play on a boys' team, and we discriminate against girls, so you have to play on a girls' team. So we separate them out by gender, and I don't think we can adopt a policy that says we don't discriminate on gender when we do, and we should continue to. Otherwise, it's going to mess up the girls' sports entirely and their sports programs. And so I don't think that we want to do that. It seems like a bad idea. I guess the last thing is trying to focus on these kids that are going through this kind of situation where they themselves are confused about who they are. We want to help them to be confident in who they are. And particularly the last bit that Dan sent a couple days ago from WASDA, I don't know exactly who put it together, but it was written in such a way that it really encourages the kids to not be who they are, but to, I'm not exactly sure how to word it, but to be something else. And that it even says if we know that a kid is identifying as a different gender or something, exactly what that means, I don't know, but whatever exactly that means, that we wouldn't even tell their parents or whatever. I mean, the kid's going through a hard thing mentally in this stage, and we should be helping them and telling their parents or telling somebody like the kid needs help because they're struggling, and we're just saying, no, that's fine. We'll just, you can just be who you want to be. But in some cases, we can't be who we want to be. We got to be who we are. And gender is like the biggest block that there is of that. We are who we are, and the kids have to somehow cope with that. They're struggling and they're hurting in these cases, and a policy like this doesn't really help them out. Right? I think it actually impedes their ability to cope and do well, at least in the way that I read what was sent. And so, for those reasons, it seems like it wouldn't benefit our students. It wouldn't benefit our district to have it. I think it sets us up for lawsuits too, particularly with the locker room situation, but even for sports too. If girls are not able to play sports well because their positions have been taken over by boys, then I could set the lawsuit there.
So is the discrimination on gender is already in our policies? All we're adding is the transgender piece. So we already have a policy that says that we don't discriminate based on sex or
but we do.
Skin color and stuff. But so I guess the question is, I mean, just to throw, but there are girls that do wrestling that wrestle boys, so that we do have that kind of cross of that, but that's pretty atypical. So within that, I'm not sure how they get around that, but clearly there's a general policy against discrimination based on sex, and so Title IX really comes out of that.
Not only requires discrimination based on gender.
Yeah, but it also says you have to treat them equally. so that you aren't spending this much on boys and substantially less on girls' sports.
Right.
Which was, back when I went to high school, there were no girls' sports, which dates me, I guess. And so now we have this where there's parity, or close to parity. And that still seems to be consistent with this idea that you don't discriminate based on sex.
Well, not really.
I understand the conundrum that you're posing, but I think that it's generally accepted that that's consistent with that policy.
Well, the policy should say what we're doing. And so if we're doing it, I think the policy, I mean, we've talked about that with other topics, like the cell phone thing. The policy should say what we're doing, and we should do what the policy says. And if they are incongruent, we should change one or the other, whichever one we decide to change, we should change. But the idea that we don't believe in discrimination based on gender is not true. We very much do believe it in certain cases. Not in a lot of cases, we don't think we should discriminate based on gender, but in some cases, we should discriminate based on gender. It depends on the situation.
I don't know if it's actually that we're discriminating on the basis of gender. I think it's more that we've set it as a goal through that Title IX thing to have equal opportunities for both genders. And I think that the transgender policy is not even related to sports. I think it just says that if you have someone who feels that they are a transgender student, and you have to accommodate them the same as you would accommodate a blind person or a person that only spoke Spanish or something, you have to make some accommodations for them. I think that's all the policy addresses, is that it says that, yes, we will make accommodations and have a meeting with the parents and go from there. I don't see it as a huge problem with sports. I know I remember thinking the same thing, thinking, geez, I wish that the opportunity to, like the girls are able to wrestle. I don't know how they get away with that, wrestling boys. I would have loved to play tennis on the girls' tennis team. I think it would have been a riot, but it wasn't something that was a doable thing, and I'm sure it's still not that way now. I'm sure that.
Well, why not?
Well, because it's not allowed. It's a girls' tennis team.
Because they discriminate against you.
Not necessarily.
You're using a very,
Yeah, narrow definition. They have other sports for girls, or that or for boys that the girls don't have, and so sometimes they'll say yes, both boys and girls can do it. Sometimes the boys and girls can do it together. Sometimes the boys do it separately from the girls. It's to me, it's like it's almost unrelated to this transgender policy.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. In some situations, it's okay.
But I mean, I think what you're saying though is you're saying so every boy is gonna come out and say, I'm a girl, and so I want to play on the girls team.
They could.
Which I don't believe is accurate. There's more to it than just saying, oh, I feel like a girl today. I mean, I don't believe that's correct.
And I think that's, whether your belief is that these kids are making a choice that they feel like the other gender, or that your belief is they feel that way because that's the way they were born, is irrelevant.
Right, I agree.
Because we're putting aside our personal beliefs and feelings, and we're looking at what this policy is and what it does for the school district in terms of liability and protecting us and not discriminating. And I know that you have a different definition of discrimination maybe than.
Well, what's your definition of discrimination?
Well, in this case, if you told someone, no, you can't, if there was a boy that identified as a girl and you said, no, you can't do that, we're discriminating against them.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're allowing them to have their freedom of gender expression. If that means that we have to accommodate them with a restroom or with a locker room, and if you look at the procedure, it talks about providing them private spaces. So it's not like they're, out running through the locker room pointing at things.
That's not what it says in there, but I wouldn't have a problem with that.
It does say that in there.
It says they can be in the opposite locker room.
Yeah, but it says
That's not a private space.
yes, but if they say there's in a coach's office or in a curtained off area, it is a private space. Those kids don't necessarily want any attention drawn to them either. It's not like someone's going to say, well, I want to play volleyball, so I'm going to, all of a sudden over the summer, I'm going to decide that I'm a girl. It doesn't work like that.
It could though. If under this policy, it could.
But I just
May or
don't
may
think,
not.
why would somebody, well, I'm going to keep my own beliefs out of this, but I just don't see it happening. that student is setting themselves up for more than it's worth to play volleyball.
And I think we're setting ourselves up for a lawsuit with that because the policy would allow for that to happen.
But Caleb, there's examples all over the country of districts that don't have policies that have discriminated against transgender students and have paid out hundreds of thousands of dollars. So by not having a policy and not complying with the anti-discrimination, we're setting ourselves up for a lawsuit.
So this comes from existing case law, there have been other cases.
Yeah.
Do you know of any?
I was gonna say, I mean, we can talk about this, it's actually on the, I mean, does anybody want to make a motion, or are we gonna?
Well, I move we adopt the policy.
Got a motion to adopt the policy. And a second. Now, is there any more discussion? If you got a discussion, I just want to, I don't want to have this discussion all night if nobody cared about voting on it, so.
I just kind of want to emphasize that it's necessary. I believe it's this, you mentioned last meeting that this issue could easily come up. And it's not making a statement for or against the issue, it's just providing policies to deal with it. Because our schools get whatever's going around in society, whatever issues are, and I think it's valuable that we have guidance and policy on this. And I understand you're concerned about the details of it, the access to bathrooms. I was too when I got, I went through the material that Dan sent. And I think there was enough flexibility that it can be adapted to specific individuals and situations. So
That's my concern, is it's too broad, there's too much flexibility in it. Where somebody could say, this is the policy, so I want to do this, and we don't give ourselves the ability to say no based on the policy. We don't have the ability to tell a boy you can't play on the girls' basketball team or whatever team because of this policy.
So the devil's in the details. So kind of the answer to the question about whether boys can play on girls' teams and stuff, if we have a policy that says we're not going to discriminate, we have the procedures of how you implement that. And so if we're clear in the procedures about what it means not to discriminate, if we say that we're going to provide equal opportunity, equal facilities, and that kind of stuff to male and female athletes, then I think we deal with the discrimination issues potentially there. So access, as you're discussing it, there. The piece about then how you deal with racial discrimination or discrimination based on faith or, in this case, transgender identity. Again, the devil's in the details, and how you deal with the procedures for implementing the policy, I think, is where you get at some of the places where the lawsuits might show up, where people would have reverse discrimination kind of issues. And so I think we have to look at the procedures and how this is implemented. The policy itself, I think, is a good, fair approach to making sure that we treat people fairly and decently. And then it's the procedures about how we actually implement that. So when this comes up, first and foremost, if it shows up in the school here in the next 2 months, first and foremost, we have this kind of ideal that sits out there and says, no, we're not going to discriminate, we're going to make accommodations and that kind of stuff. And then we have to figure out exactly what that means, and hopefully the piece that I missed has some discussion of what it means to do that. And certainly I think for me, but not having seen that, the key detail in all of this is what it means to identify as a transgender, and how do you, what are the measures that, or the criteria that you do that, so that we make sure that it's, I mean, the big concern in all of this is one of whether the identity is in good faith. I mean, the idea that somehow.
The point with that is we're not helping the kids with this policy. because the transgender kid believes they're a gender other than what they are, and science tells us that's not possible. So we need to, we're in the education business, and helping the kids overcome this difficulty and cope with life as they found it is an important thing for us to do.
So I think the question is, when you earlier said the kid should be who they are, is the crux of this thing, because you can be biologically one gender and socially and emotionally and cognitively another gender. And so to say that you need to be who you are is somewhat ambiguous, because in fact, this is a kid that is both. They're physically, biologically, scientifically one thing, but they're psychologically and they're another. And so they are both these things. How they are supposed to cope with that is not clear to me. I mean, some of them cope by denying the schism. Others cope by switching to what their psychology tells them they are, and so that they ignore the physical piece and sometimes get it changed. But so it's not as simple as things saying, well, we need to teach them to cope to be what they are biologically when they have the option of being who they are.
Well, they don't. We can change our minds, but we can't change our gender.
Well, actually, you can.
Well, you can, and it's never happened. Where someone who was born a boy has never born a child, and someone who was born a girl has never impregnated a person of the other gender.
Yeah, so you can't change the Y chromosome, that's for sure.
It can't happen.
But see, I think we're going back to personal feelings again. I understand where you're coming from. But I think we have to put our personal beliefs aside.
It's not personal beliefs though, it's just.
Yeah, but you're saying what you believe is correct.
Well, it is correct. It can't be.
Well, in your mind. Because I disagree with you.
You think it's possible for a girl to impregnate someone else?
No, but I think it's possible for a student of one sex to identify.
I agree with that. I'm not disagreeing.
And they're
with
not
that.
making a choice.
I'm not disagreeing with that either.
But that's what you're saying, is that they're struggling, we need to help them change their mind back. And I think Dick's right, you want them to be who they are. Well, they're trying like crazy to be who they are. They're one gender physically, and they're another gender emotionally. And they're not being allowed, in a lot of cases, to be that emotional choice.
I'm not disagreeing with that either. I'm just saying, the only issues are, for us, the only thing we have to get into really is if someone of one gender can be on the other sports team or go into the other locker room or bathroom, and having private accommodations, I don't think there's any problem with that. Them dressing as they see fit, I don't think there's any problem with that either. I don't know.
But what this policy says, if you look at the last line, it says the policy and procedure will support that effort by facilitating district compliance with local, state, and federal laws concerning harassment, intimidation, bullying, and discrimination. So we're protecting ourselves by being in compliance with local, state, and federal laws. That's all it is. And like Dick said, when we get into the procedures, then we have to decide, okay, when this happens, how are we going to handle it?
But we're already following the laws.
But we're not in compliance if we don't have this policy.
If we don't discriminate, then even if we don't have the policy, we're not at risk. Having the policy helps us in the gray area where somebody comes in and says, you are discriminating. And we can say, well, no, we have a policy that says we won't, and we've developed these procedures to make sure that we don't. And that helps protect us. If we don't have the policy, then we have no defense. Basically, I mean, if we don't discriminate, if we implement procedures without the policy, we're probably safe. But implementing the procedures without the policy is more difficult. So that's the challenge.
And what I'm saying is it actually sets it up the opposite, because we put up a policy that we won't discriminate, but in fact, we do continue to discriminate in other areas, particularly sports.
But again, not outside of state law. I mean, you're saying discrimination is choice, right? I mean, that's how you're saying.
Yeah.
We're making a choice that we're not going to let boys play on the girls' team.
Right.
Right. You're using a very broad term of discrimination, not the negative connotation that people would take with discrimination. I mean, that's what
it says. I'm just going off what it says here.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you're playing I mean, you're playing with words. I mean, you understand. I understand what you're saying, but you also understand that that's not what this intent is.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
know
It's not
that's not the intent.
It's not, I don't know what the intent is specifically, but I do know that the policy would end gender discrimination. We don't want to end gender discrimination in all cases.
So let's just, I think everybody's clear on Caleb's point, understands Clay's position. Anybody else have a position that they would like to discuss? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and go for a vote then.
All right, that sounds good.
All those in favor of policy 3211, please say aye. Any opposed?
Yeah.
Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to the field turf donation, Willis Enterprises.
I move we accept the field turf donation.
Just for clarity, this is the matching money that was, promised, but I don't like the word necessarily written down, for the money that was collected from other donations.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second to approve the field turf donation. Any discussion? I would just say, you know, the Kelsey Foundation has made the same, they will fund, you know, what as we need, you know, they certainly are gonna still fund it. I know that they didn't do it by the year end, but that was not, they'll get it in, so. Any other? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, move on to the bus lease agreement.
So if you remember, we talked last month about the bus lease agreement. This is something that we've done for the last couple of years. There's an upfront payment that we make, a down payment, and then we pay those buses off in August, September, when we get the depreciation dollars. So we've got enough money currently in our TDF to pay the down payment, and we've got enough money coming in September from the depreciation to pay off the bus. Correct?
Buses.
Buses, we already have one.
Yep, we've got one in possession already.
They're just getting it road ready. Like I said, road ready. That was the mechanic said, we're getting the road ready. I thought it was cool, so.
So this approach is not a change. We didn't used to always just purchase them outright. We tended to do this.
The last,
No, since they changed our depreciation
Yeah.
payment,
Okay,
which has been
When
the
we
last 3 or 4
receive
years.
so that was my first question, was whether this was a change in policy.
We still end up owning the bus. so-
Yes, it's just because what they do is they want to make sure that they sell buses, and so they work this out, so they're putting some faith in the fact that districts will pay that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the cost of money for this? So we're paying some extra piece.
you have that, I don't have those agreement in
in
front of
order
me.
to have them carry us for the 8 months or 9 months.
I think on that, Dan's keep scrolling.
The second page one.
It's
didn't wait
the
to-
breakdown of the, keep going.
Oh, there it is. I
There
didn't
it
get
is.
that
So
far.
it's, so it'll be probably around it'll,
$1,700.
right, well, but we won't make a third payment. We'll make that, we'll do the lump sum in the second payment. So we'll have some interest savings because I'll call and get the payoff when,
Your money.
so somewhere between 1,000 and 1,700.
Okay. Good, thank you. I move we enter into the agreement for the lease of a bus.
Second.
A motion second to approve the bus lease. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Next on the agenda is the first day of school.
So you have this little calendar at your seat, show you August and September. Notice that Labor Day this year is a little bit later than it has been, September the 7th. This is the start of our calendar construction process for next year. And we're looking at maybe March, probably, for the approval of the calendar. If you think, Dan, give us enough time to,
I think so.
I guess, we'll push it, but I think
We're getting good at
we're traditionally, we hang back till March.
Are you saying we're not taking action on this right now?
Now, we're taking action on the first day of school. But this will drive the calendar that you'll approve later.
Sets up the rest of the discussion.
Oh, okay.
So the discussions we've had the last few years have been with a Labor Day that was the first or second or along those lines. It appears that we've made the switch that happens periodically where it's all of a sudden jumped. So if we apply the logic we've used the last few years, then it would probably make sense to move the start date before Labor Day, as much as I hate that thought. The question is, at this point, if we just move it to the Friday, to the 4th, then I don't know that we gain anything. We have the same discussions we've had in the past time. So if in fact, it seems to me like you would want to then start on the first or second or something like that in order to gain any real benefit from starting that week.
I would say my recommendation would be the second, because it gives teachers a chance to come and have a couple days prior to that day to get their classrooms ready and mentally prepare for them to go out and vote.
Which one? What's the last day of school this year?
17th, June 17th. Good comment.
No.
So what are the options then?
The options are that week of September 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, or September 8th.
I mean, it seems like we usually have groups of people that show up and tell you why they want it one day or another, that nobody's here.
I do think.
Five staff members here.
Nobody's here. Thanks.
It seems to be the general consensus is they'd rather start earlier, especially with the later day, correct?
You think?
Oregon's one.
Are you're the after?
No.
No.
So, yeah.
She was shaking her hand. Yeah, with that, yeah.
You know, I found that it doesn't make any difference. The kids come the first day, whatever. It's, you know, the argument used to be, oh, everyone will be on vacation still. They come.
And I can assure you that work is being done the first day. In those past years where we've had 3-day weeks, they're not sitting around doing nothing. They're working.
I mean, that's the only thing I question is, if that's the case, why not start earlier? I mean, why not start on the 1st or the 31st? Or, you know, I mean, why waste 2 days in the week?
Because the weather's really nice. No, really, the biggest reason is the advantage to starting before, and having 2 to 3 days before is that's when the teachers get the routines established, go over the rules and everything else. So you don't need a full week to do that.
So, but then just to be devil's advocate, in theory, then you could do your routines on Monday and Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, you'd be totally fine.
Except in our case, usually a lot of things that we do, particularly at the elementary, is a week-long process. A lot of, you know, Cindy, and you should know too, you start a story on Monday, you build on it Tuesday, Wednesday, and things like that. Same thing, you know, so that's what I'm saying with that is it doesn't benefit to have the 2 days because you can't really start too much of your curriculum in 2 days. But that's just me. I don't know about
So
that.
okay, so you guys are going against each other, because you're saying work's happening, you're saying it's not, so I'm just
No,
going to forward, you
I'm
guys.
saying work's happening and I can make it work.
My preference is after the Labor Day, but I understand the issue, and I'm okay with going before. I'm just
Well,
having some fun with it while we're at it, because
you're just picking on us now.
Well, this isn't fun. I think it's fun.
I'll make.
I was just saying, somebody throw something out.
I was gonna make a motion to have the first day of school, September 2nd.
Got a motion for the second.
I'll second that.
Adam got a second. Any more discussion?
I guess one bit of discussion, maybe we may not have enough time for this, and maybe this is something we pushed on for last year. We talked about year-round stuff. Would it make sense to try to start a whole week sooner and pick up an extra week of vacation in the spring or something like that? Are we ready to do something like that now?
My opinion on that, just with talking to, you know, and the work that I don't think I think we have to have a lot more discussion with teachers and, I mean, a lot of people if we're gonna do something like that. They're just, there's a lot of discussion and a lot of things that go into that I feel like, I think we've started it, but we're nowhere near being able to, in my opinion, being able to do something like that, so.
I would be a little bit opposed to the idea, but I want to at least bring it up. I think, like Dan said, frankly, our summers are so stinking short, and some of those days tend to be summer. And so I think that's worth something.
Gonna throw out like the 10th, 11th.
Well,
I'll
let's start
second
October
that.
1st.
There you go, October 1st. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion for starting school on September 2nd? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next on the agenda is board elections.
We held this one off for last month since we didn't have a full team with us.
So what we would do is we would have, was it 2 people that weren't here?
Yeah, we could really handle that.
They wanted to do that, I wouldn't let them. Okay, so we're looking for board chair, vice chair. We've got legislative rep and WIAA, but you guys can be comfortable in those.
I'd be more than happy to continue doing that because I've been doing other stuff with that.
I figured you would, you got involved in that.
I would nominate Dick to continue that position. Are you ready?
Legislative representative, I'll second it.
Motion is second to keep Dick as the legislative representative. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mike, you want to stay at WIAA?
Yeah, they're doing nothing to it.
How about if
I was gonna
we
say,
take a slightly different approach to this? And I'll ask the question, Steve, are you open to being the chair again?
yeah, I can do it.
And
Anybody else?
Caleb, you were the vice chair. Were you anticipating moving into the chair and this would hurt your feelings?
I'm not anticipating moving into the chair. It's fine.
Okay. So I would move that we keep the current slate of officers
Excellent.
or positions or whatever we call ourselves.
Or a motion?
Can you do that in one fell swoop like
Oh,
that?
Yeah.
Just move, yes.
I said I have a motion, so I'm waiting for a second.
I'll second.
And a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed?
It's kind of like being president of Kiwanis. It's a lifetime position.
Still an election. Public comments. Public comment.
Go Seahawks.
Nice. Okay, moving on, superintendent's report.
You have at your place a tailgate pancake breakfast invitation. We did this at Beacon last week. Actually, I should say we, although I did help.
I was gonna say it was we.
We did. Sheila was serving, I was flipping pancakes, we both reeked when we got that. So they're having the same thing over since next Thursday, so you guys are invited to come. Kind of a fun little thing. Also, January is Board Appreciation Month, so we've got a little something to appreciate Steve's second term as chair. We have Seahawk cupcakes, and you may have chocolate or white.
Really? Those look like, those are cupcakes? That's the biggest cupcake I've ever seen in my life.
White cake.
Those are awesome.
White?
Check that out.
Chocolate?
The white one.
Chris?
Miller.
You sure?
Yeah.
This one has a hairline, I'm not sure exactly.
Oh, no.
Chocolate's fine, yeah.
Chocolate and Dan. Chocolate.
I'll take a white one.
I'm looking at.
I think he was looking at Steve.
I thought he was looking at you too, I didn't.
Oh, thank you.
They all see hockey and stuff.
Check that out.
So we're gonna have green and blue lips for the.
Nope, we're good.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
There you go.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you guys for the work that you do for the district, and we appreciate you.
Okay, moving on to board comments.
So I unfortunately missed the meeting in December and I felt really bad because I wanted to hear what Alec had to say. And so I went in and actually, we finally got together today and I spent probably just an hour of his day. And we had a really good wide-ranging discussion and I'm feeling pretty good about what he's got instituted and he has high praise for the staff and the way they're approaching the whole thing. And So it sounded good. We talked about some issues that I'm involved with in terms of the Montesano Community Outreach, which funds some of the supplementary stuff that helps with kids that are needing some intervention. And so we have some things to think about there, but feeling really good about that. Good. So I'm glad I was able to make contact with them. In my role as legislative rep, I'm also on the WASDA Legislative Committee. There's about 30 of us, I guess, that are doing that. So we have our legislative conference coming up on March 1st and 2nd up in Olympia. The first day we have a lot of speakers coming in that talk about what the issues are, and people from the legislature, people from OSBI, talking about what the issues are that are out there. And then on Monday, we've set up appointments with all of the legislators across the state. I took care of setting them up for the people that are in District 19. So it's an opportunity to go with fellow board members to meet with the legislators from your area and hear what they have to say and make our pitch for what we think ought to happen. So if you have the opportunity to be able to sign up for that, it's a good learning experience and a good opportunity to talk about stuff. If you're interested in more detail about what's happening at the legislature, every Friday at 12:30, the legislative reps can call into a conference call, and Deb Merle, who's the government affairs person for WASDA, puts on a little presentation about what's happened so far this week and what's expected next week. If there are issues that you're interested in, talks about you can make arrangements to come up and testify and that sort of thing. So there are opportunities to get involved as much as you want.
What day did you say the legislative?
March 1st and 2nd. So it's a Sunday and a Monday. The Sunday is where we have people come in and talk about the issues, and we'll get together late that Sunday afternoon and talk about going to talk with legislators the next day. And then all day Monday is set up. All the appointments that I set up are for 8:30 in the morning and whenever we can get Brian Hatfield off the floor. So District 19, we could be done fairly quickly. So, anyway.
Very good. Thank you. Mike?
Just want to apologize for missing the latest meeting. I had another meeting I had to go to. It was kind of last minute. I wasn't able to be here. I think from everything we said, that the redistricting thing, which I used to think was a good idea, is now sort of a moot point, and so that's fine. I accept that. I'd just like to make sure that the school somehow publicizes when that jazz and dessert thing is. It seems like sometimes I miss it, and I would like to go every year, but I just don't catch it. And then maybe somebody could maybe update the stuff that's on the web, because when you put Montesano, WebNet, edu, several things come up that are like way out of date. It's really good.
That's not the.
The new website with the new web address.
I think on my computer it's Bing, that's the search engine, and you put Monty, WebNet.edu.
No, but don't put Monty.WebNet.edu. Monty School District. Put it in montyschools.com. Or montyschools.org. That's what it looks like.
I mean, that's what one of them comes up now. When you did the WebNet thing, then you got a bunch of other stuff, and some of it's really, really old, out of date. I don't know.
It's gonna.
Do you get that stuff off the web, or?
No, it's gonna take years before the search engines don't recognize dead sites. So that site's dead.
It has content on it. Can't you just pull all the content?
We've shut down our service with them. It's completely closed with them. Centricity, that company that used to use it, they have to take it off their servers, and they will at some point.
All right, that's all I had.
What were you talking about, the redistricting?
That we've decided, from the way that the legislation stuff went, that it was kind of a moot point at this point. They weren't gonna allow you to do it anyway.
Having the at-large.
Well, at this point, they're still able, no, at this point, you're still able to do it. It's gonna come up again. The problem we're having right now is that the redistricting of the district was never done.
Oh, yeah.
She split it into 3 districts as opposed to 5.
Right.
So that process was going to take longer than we had to file for the February election. So it's not completely off the table.
Yeah, because I thought we were still, the problem with our community is excuse me, it's not like the constituents on the east side of town are different than the west. I mean, it's so small. I know it's Canada's having a challenge or whatever.
Yeah, come on.
You know, I just, for us, if we can legally do it, I think there's a real advantage because, you know, our areas are fairly small and you can be limited on who, you know, the place of competition.
Yeah, I still think it was a good idea too, because there were some times when there'd be a district where you literally, when somebody would leave the district or resign their seat or whatever, and then you couldn't find anybody that wanted to do it.
Right.
And so at least with the large thing, I think that was better.
That was, so, yeah, I don't think we're done looking at that at all.
Okay.
We just have to.
There will be a bill dropped, and I don't know that it might already have been, the Washington State Voting Rights Act. It's the City of Yakima Memorial Voting Rights Act bill, because that's where it really is focused. But it would open you up to challenge if you had that large, actually, the fact that we have all white men sitting up here could potentially lead us to under that law, but you have to show a pattern of discrimination. Originally, it just said if you didn't look like your community, they could get triple damages and stuff like that. It's been watered down. WASD has been watching that, we're actually helping work on it to make it healthy, but it's still got a ways to go. But at this point, there isn't anything out there that says you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Caleb.
No major stuff. 3 of the teachers that are retiring though on this tonight have been teachers that my kids have had. And so got personal relationships there, including Mrs. Gerard here tonight. And so sad to see her go and sad to see a couple of the others here go. Well, all of them, but the ones I know personally have my kids were with. We really like them. And I guess that's what happens at some point, hopefully anyways. But nonetheless, it's sad for us to see good folks go, but we wish them all the best in the future. So very nice to see this donation from Willis Enterprises for the field trip. That's a cool deal. But anyway, that's all. Thanks.
Chris?
Yeah, I ran into a district parent a few weeks ago, and she had some very nice things to say about the work that Mrs. Hoffman is doing in the band. And she thought that our the people involved in our band program often don't get the recognition they deserve for the work they do. So it's good to hear that from the district. Teachers do good work.
Very good.
Yeah. That's it.
All right, thanks. I just wanted to thank Sean again for the work on the strategic, the scorecard and all the time you put into that. And for you guys, everybody that's put time into that, I think we're definitely, I think it really is good to see. I think that's the kind of representation we need for the district. I did sit in on the audit entrance exam and actually had to answer questions, which I wasn't prepared for, but they didn't tell me that was coming. But it's yeah, appreciate that very much. No, but I would echo what Sheila said. We've been very fortunate to have clean audits for quite some time, so I appreciate the work that you're doing with that. And then I do thank you for bringing Knowledgeable. I mean, I think I hadn't had the opportunity to see Knowledgeable in action and see Jeff bring in the way that he rings in, and see how good that team is. But I just think it's good for us to see, the quality of kids that we have in the district. And so it was fun to be able to do that. So I really appreciate you taking the time and having them come to do that. So I will set up a workshop for the strategic plan between now and the next meeting. I think with that, we will adjourn. Have a good night.